Good morning, boys and girls. I am back, and this morning I'm going to read book number 4. Walter the Farting Dog Goes on a Cruise. So, book number 3 has not come in yet. Book number 3 was Walter the Farting Dog, Rough Weather Ahead. So, I'm gonna skip 3 for now and go on to 4. And I'll go back and pick up 3 and read that when it comes in. Hopefully it'll get in today or tomorrow. So this one is Walter the Farting Dog Goes on a Cruise. So it's book number 4. Remember, book number 1 was the first book that Mrs. Whitaker had read to us, and then I reread it, Walter the Farting Dog. Then book number 2 was the one that I just posted on YouTube, which was Walter the Farting Dog, Trouble at the Garage Sale. And then this is book number 4. And it's Walter the Farting Dog Goes on a Cruise. So just to go back and review main characters, we have Walter, we have Mom, we have Dad, we have Billy, we have Betty, and then the first book, there was also the police officer, and Uncle Irv was mentioned really quickly. And then the second book, we had the, back to the first book, we also had the robbers. And then the second book we read, we had the gentleman that ended up being also the clown / robber that was also part of the second book. So we'll see what characters are still a part of book number 4. So as I read it, kind of think about the setting. Remember, the setting changed in the first story. The setting took place at Betty and Billy's house. And then the second one took place, of course, at the yard sale. So it was outside at the garage sale, part of it. And then part of it ended up being at the gentleman's house and in the bank. So there were a couple different settings. So this one, I can tell if the book is called Walter the Farting Dog Goes on a Cruise, I think the setting, I can make that connection and know that the setting of the story is probably going to be on a cruise ship. So where they're going, I don't know, but I think it's going to be on a cruise ship. And I can look at the cover and the illustrations, and I can see the picture of the cruise ship, and I see Walter laying on the front of it. So just by looking at the cover of the book, I can make those predictions using making inferences using what you already know about a subject or a topic and what the author gives you, and put that together to make an inference what you think is going to happen. Look at the size of that ship, said Billy. It's as high as a 23-story building, said Father. It has everything in it, said Mother, even a shopping mall. And 5 swimming pools, said Betty. Walter farted excitedly. Sounds like a fun cruise ship. Welcome aboard, said the cruise director. What a nice dog, said Pet Officer Smedley. The ship pulled away from the dock. The horn sounded. Walter farted. So there's another character that was introduced, the sea director, or the ship director. Officer Smedley. All our animal friends stay down here in the pet palace, said Pet Officer Smedley. We do our best to make them completely comfortable. Walter sniffed around the fancy room. I'm off for my first round of golf, said Father. I'm off for my massage, said Mother. We're off to swim in all 5 pools, said Billy. Don't worry, Walter, added Betty. We'll be back in a little while. Walter settled down on a plush cushion. Not that, he said to himself, and farted. And plush is an adjective, which means like really fluffy. Could be comfortable. As soon as the door of the pet palace closed, trouble started brewing. Dogs began growling. Cats began hissing. Birds began squawking. Why? Walter was farting. Get that stinker out of here, said the parrot in the corner. Pet Officer Smedley returned with some pet treats and was instantly enveloped in a fart cloud. This smells like an emergency to me, he said, and opened all the vents. And you hear that word enveloped when it said that Pet Officer Smedley returned with some pet treats and was instantly enveloped in a fart cloud. Enveloped, when you think of that word, you hear or you see the word envelope in the word. And we know that an envelope holds the contents of a letter, or you put your bills in an envelope, anything that you want to keep in one place if you're to keep it safe to get from one place to another. So that would be an envelope, it holds it. So if it's enveloped, that means that it's caught you up in it. So he was, that whole fart cloud just took him up in it. On the golf course, Father was lining up a putt when he noticed a familiar smell. What's that horrible odor? Said one of the other golfers. Must be the sea air, said Father. But Father knew it wasn't the sea air. He saw Pet Officer Smedley coming toward him. We've got a problem with that dog of yours, said Smedley. So here's the problem again. Father, Mother, Betty, and Billy were led back to the palace. Fart alert, squawked the parrot. We're going to have to put Walter in quarantine. There's that word quarantine again. We heard it in the Missing Magic. Now we've heard it in Walter the Farting Dog. We know that we ourselves have been under quarantine with the coronavirus, so we can make that connection. Text to self connections, text to text connections, and text to world connections with that word quarantine. Oh no, thought Walter. Lower the lifeboats, squawked the parrot. Women and parrots first. They decided to put Walter in the room where they stored the stinky cheeses. Don't worry, Walter, said Billy. We won't be far away. We'll visit you a whole lot, said Betty as she closed the door. Fair enough, thought Walter. Walter quietly farting. Among the stinky cheeses, there was a big one that called to Walter. I shouldn't eat that, thought Walter. It doesn't belong to me. Yet, here we are together, me and the cheese. Perhaps if I just licked it lightly, no one would notice. He licked it lightly, then ate the entire cheese. Does that sound familiar? What did he do in that first book when he had those low, the reduced farting dog biscuits? The one that were supposed to help him stop. And remember, they were a 25-pound box, and he ate the whole box. So now he sees this cheese, and he just can't resist. Even though Walter was tucked away deep in the belly of the ship, his farts crept under the door, slithered along the hallway, and made their way upstairs. By the next day, all 6 dining rooms were filled with farts and angry passengers. This ship stinks. We want our money back. Please be patient, ladies and gentlemen, said the cruise director. We're having a little problem with the ventilation system, but we'll have it under control in a few minutes. And the ventilation system is like your air conditioning system. So there's the first page. There's that second page. The captain said, "Put that dog overboard." Walter was lowered in a lifeboat, which was tied to the back of the ship. "This will be fun, Walter," said Billy. Officer Smedley promised he would bring you treats every day, said Betty. Fair enough, thought Walter, farting. That night, the huge block of cheese inside him began doing its work, plugging up all the farts. The passengers were enjoying themselves again while Walter trailed behind in his lonely lifeboat. The gas is building badly, he said, but at least I'm still attached to the ship. Suddenly, the computer system that controlled everything on the ship crashed, and the backup system crashed right behind it. The power died. The engines quit, and the ship drifted helplessly. Everybody grew hot and cranky. In his lifeboat, Walter was having his own problems. The gas pains were unbearable. Try not to think about it, he said to himself, twisting to look at his tail. He realized, if that cheese lets go, I'll be blown halfway to the Arctic Circle. He felt the gas bubble, building and building and building. He dug with his balls and braced himself. If anything breaks my perfect concentration, I'm done for. A fly landed on his nose. He looked at the fly. The fly looked at him. You see the fly on his nose. And his poor little paws bracing his life jacket. There was a deep rumble as the cheese shifted inside him. A few small farts came out and gently pushed the lifeboat up against the ship. That wasn't so bad, said Walter, but then all the farts that had been blocked for days came out with the roar of a rocket. So they're talking about comparing his gas passing to that of a roar of a rocket. So the author did not use like or as, so it's not a simile. Comparing two things also can be a metaphor without using like or as. So they're saying that the farts that had been blocked for days came out with the roar of a rocket. So they're comparing that to a rocket. The ship heaved forward. Walter hung on, still farting. Warp speed, squawked the parrot in the pet palace. We must be back to full power, said Father, gripping the deck rail. But it was much more than full power. It was fart power. It shot the ship over the horizon and into port. Right on time, said the captain. When the cruise was over, Pet Officer Smedley presented Walter with a sailor hat. It was an honor having Walter on our cruise. We had a great time, but it's good to be back on land, said Mother. Anyone for pizzas? Asked Father. Hold the cheese, squawked the parrot. And they changed the name at the beginning. If you look at the photo, let's see, the illustration, I should say, not photo. The boat was called Seawind in the illustration in the first part of the story. And at the end of the story, it's now called Walter's Wind. So one thing that I noticed in all of the books of Walter the Farting Dog, Walter ends up saving the day. So he ends up solving the problem. So Walter is the hero in all of the stories. In the first story, Walter the Farting Dog, Walter saves the things from being stolen from the house, from the burglars. The second story, Walter at the yard sale, Walter took everyone back to the house and showed them the clown or the bank robber and all of the money, so he helped them solve that problem. And then in this book, on the cruise ship, Walter, the cruise ship lost all of its power, and Walter ended up using his major problem and helped get the ship back into the port by powering it with his flatulence. Remember, the word flatulence is a fancy word for farting or passing gas. So Walter saved the day in all three stories so far. So that's how we can compare the three stories and how they're alike. In this story, the Who is, Walter's family. Wants what? They want to go on a cruise and they want to have a good time. But Walter gets on the cruise and starts passing gas. So the cruise director puts Walter on this life raft. So who wants what, but so, and then before Walter got on the life raft, he had eaten that big piece of cheese and his stomach started to hurt on that life raft. Well, during that same time, remember, the ship lost all of its power, its computers, the backup. So they had no engines and the ship could not move. Luckily, Walter had been holding up all of those gas pains inside of his stomach from eating that cheese. And finally, when it came out with the roar of a rocket, it powered the cruise ship all the way through and got the cruise ship safely back to port. So then Walter was recognized as the hero because he saved the day. He was able to get that cruise ship back in so that everybody could get off of it. So that was our quick way to summarize the story using our Fab Five. The who, once what, but, so, then. So you should be able to retell this story to someone, whether it's your mom, your dad, your aunt, maybe your grandpa, your grandma, brothers or sisters, any person that you can find, and you can tell them in your own words what the story was about. And that's the whole purpose of you using the Fab Five, is to retell the story in your own words. Another thing with the story, again, the genre would be humorous fiction. Humorous, remember, means funny. So the author wrote this book to be funny. So humorous fiction is the genre of the story. The other thing is, remember the connections. And it's so strange, kind of funny, that I was able to pick books, and without even me knowing, because I had no idea, you had no idea, that we were going to be under our own quarantine, that the books that I chose actually had chapters or parts in them that talked about quarantining. So of course Walter was quarantined to the lifeboat, so that nobody had to smell his flatulence. And then in The Missing Magic, the animals were starting to get sick, so they were all quarantined where no one could come into the Magical Animal Adoption Agency. And of course, with us, we have the COVID-19, so we've all been quarantined to our homes and asked not to go out, so that we could stop the spread of the virus. So we can make those connections to all of those books. So I hope that you find someone to share the book to, and I want you just to think about it. Make sure you make those connections and go back, and as you retell the story, visualize in your own mind the things that happened in the story. You saw the illustrations, but I want you to think about, like, maybe if you've been on a boat or you've been on a cruise ship or a vacation, and maybe there were some problems and how did they get solved, and just make those connections. And as soon as I get book number 3, Walter the Farting Dog, Rough Weather Ahead, I will post that for you. So until then, from my heart to your heart, I love you, I miss you, and I will see you soon. Have a good day. Bye.